Padres season has arrived. This is it. It's opening day week. Padres Hot Tub is here to cover everything all season long, hopefully all the way through to a long and deep playoff run. And if you're a fan of Padres Hot Tub and you enjoy the content that we've been making for you for years around here, the best way that you can support this show is by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub, patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. So many advantages to becoming a patron. The lowest level is at $5 a month, extremely affordable. And Chris, the benefits outweigh the cost, in my opinion.
I would agree with you, Craig. Not only do you get the access to the Discord, where there's a thriving community of people discussing a myriad of topics every day, from studio films to beer and food. You're going to get tangible benefits such as access to ticket giveaways, access to baseball card breaks that I do. As a matter of fact, I am doing a free break. Take a look for the details of that on our baseball card channel. And also, if you are higher levels, get a t-shirt with a hot tub with Padres players on it, believe it or not.
Hey, plain and simple. Now that the season's here, chances to go to ball games if you are in San Diego proper as well. So check it out. Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub, patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. There are higher levels as well, $12 and $30 levels. There's all sorts of benefits that go with those. Check them out, find the level that's right for you, and hopefully you continue to support Padres Hot Tub. Welcome to the Padres Hot Tub, everybody. Craig Elsten, Chris Reed, Raphie Cantor. We are here with you. We record this on the evening of Monday, March 18th. Soon, overnight on the West Coast. Whoa. Was that Frank Thomas? Just surfing by randomly? Like, just out of nowhere? Hey, guys, what's your tea levels looking like? Frank Thomas here.
It's not a Nutrisystem commercial or something?
No. Oh, man. Well, on today's show, we are going to wrap up our 3-week, 3-part prediction series with our actual official predictions for the 2024 Padres, plus breaking news around the league, including Blake Snell to the Giants.
Breaking hearts.
But
breaking
first,
hearts and balls.
Right? Jerk. Not him.
What happened to Raphie? Raphie just went into like a storm cloud.
If you're not watching us on YouTube,
My
like
God.
I did something where I made a frowny face and put thumbs down. And it, like, I don't know, like the software that we use just took over and it put me into like a rainy storm or something.
I thought Raphie
That was wild.
I thought Raphie was jumping up the producer game.
We have like filters now? What's going on? Like,
I cannot take credit at all for that. That was all Riverside.
Wow.
Okay. All right.
AI.
Wild. Very briefly, we've got a couple quick hits for our patrons. First off, and for everybody, there's a new Pods Above replacement. Yes. Raphie and John Percoda are back with a new Pods Above replacement. Tell everybody what the new episode's about, Rafe.
A little man named Dylan Cease. That's saying that name sound familiar. No, I mean, it was great. We didn't have anything to talk about in the off season. Things were busy for me and John personally. And then AJ, rescues us all with some news to talk about. We got to break down the trade. We got to talk about why his slider is so good. And we got to talk about how Ruben Niebla might make Dylan Cease even better. So go ahead and check it out.
Also, we have the last couple of weeks on the show mentioned for our patrons at patreon.com that we had openings in our fantasy leagues. We'd like to report that is donezo. We are full. We have an operating 70, not 17, 70 team league tiered from A through E that is existing now, promotion, relegation, the whole damn thing. And we just wanted to say a big shout out and thank you to Monty, one of our great patrons,
Here,
who
here.
is not only a delight in the Discord, but has taken on the weighty role of commissioner and done it over league and league and league. And he has just kept everything organized. He kept so many drafts running on time. So just huge shout out to Monty for keeping everything rolling.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. Like, it is absolutely yeoman's work. He's done it seemingly with a smile, but he's truly one of the legends in our Discord, and he's built something extraordinary that gives a lot of folks joy and the competitive fire that we all have going through what could be a long season.
Yeah. Just working with Monty really quickly. Like, he's been we've been messaging and stuff just to accommodate like Discord stuff as the league has gone, and it's just like every few days it's like, oh my god, 5 more people, 7 more people are in, and now it's like we're past the Wrexham tier, right? We're at the Wrexham tier of the
we
pyramid.
Have filled the Wrexham tier, yes.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
And just as a reminder to all of the great combatants from the 5-tier league to the Keeper League, champions of Padres Hot Tub Leagues not only receive whatever nominal cash prize you may have all agreed to play for, but also a sick Padres Hot Tub blanket. I've still got boxes of blankets. I've still got them. They go to huge patrons, but they also go to fantasy champs. So, by the way, if you're a huge patron and you need a blanket, make sure to line that up with Raphie and then connect with me and we'll get you your blanket. But fantasy champs, I've paid them all out. This year's champs will also get blankets. So good luck to one and all. This week's group therapy, just show notes for everybody, including on the free feed, will be recorded on Thursday evening after both games are complete. We thought about doing something on Wednesday, but it's going to be so outdated immediately and everyone's going to overreact to game 1. Let's go ahead and get the 2 games in Seoul knocked out. Everyone gets to take a nice nap. And then we'll do a Thursday evening group therapy. We do record those live with our patrons on Discord. And last thing, huge patrons, keep your eyes out, because one of your benefits is the opportunity to co-host an episode of Padres Hot Tub during the season. So keep your eye out for an invite from Raphie. That'll be coming as we try and schedule y'all. And if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. Sign up for huge patron. You must host a show. No. It's your choice. But if you want to do it, we're going to get you
level
guys
to not host the show as a huge
the $5 million level will never say anything again. It's done. Catch and kill. It's the ultimate level. Please enjoy it at patreon.com. You spoke. Padres Hot Tub listened. We are in episode 3 of our annual 3-week sojourn through predictions. And I thought we got some very constructive criticism in the last week. In particular, I heard one thing, not from just one person, which was I tuned into the Optimism episode and then I stopped listening at X minute because I hadn't heard anything positive yet. And that's fair. I think all the time writing these menus, I've always kind of been very, not dogmatic, but at least just, had a format. And the format has usually been that we kind of knocked out first our housekeeping, then our headlines, and then we got to the meaty topic of the show. And having received enough feedback to get to at least a production critical mass or something that to switch a flip in my mind, I've heard you and I agree and say, I'm sorry, we're going to do better at Padres Hot Tub. So good stuff's coming first. If we have a meaty thing, if we have a thing that we want to discuss, that's the headline of the podcast that you decided to click play on, we're going to do it at the start of the show. We're not going to do it at the end of the show. I think there was kind of an old habit of, hey, we'll do this thing and then we'll do it at the end of the show. And that means you're going to listen all the way through. I'd rather keep everyone for the first 30 or 40 minutes of the show if need be, as opposed to you logging out early. So stay tuned. We'll talk about Blake Snell later in the show, but this is the prediction episode. So, forthwith, we head into predictions. We do so with this very brief disclaimer. This is recorded on the evening of March 18th. We don't even have yet the final roster for the Korea Seoul series. We don't know the 26 that will be in that game, and that won't be announced until sometime tomorrow, when this show will already be up. Some of you will be listening to this with already one game complete in the season, quite possibly if you didn't grab it right when it popped out. So just keep that in mind. We're doing this before even the final roster is set. With that, let's work our way in a good manner, solid manner, forward to our prediction. I was trying to think of a fancier word, and I decided not to use it. We're going to go biggest strengths, biggest weaknesses of our team, biggest X factor, and then we'll each lobby our official 2024 Padres Hot Tub predictions. Probably worth mentioning, guys, how fucking wrong we were last year.
Okay, well, let's put an asterisk there. Everybody was wrong. Everybody. Nobody who you heard anywhere, besides maybe the town idiot talking to his dogs, said the Padres were going to be as bad as they were last year. So let me just say that. Like, that's a fact.
I just want to note that we were talking, there were a few things that were happening. We were mocking Rougned Odor being the right fielder, the idea
Fact.
of it. Like, we were like, it's not going to happen. It's crazy, like, et cetera, et cetera. We were talking about Cole Hamels potentially joining the team in July.
The summer of Cole.
The summer of
what
Cole.
could have been?
I'm going to go ahead. I went back, and there were honestly, I had a few that I just want to shout out because I was proud of. Kim winning the Gold Glove, I got. I gave a headline, "Hater fucks, others suck" in the bullpen, and that ended up being true. I called Martinez back to...
He fucked the bullpen. He fucked it up.
That's true. That's true. Martinez back to the bullpen. But my worst predictions, Matt Carpenter and Nelson Cruz combining for 30 home runs. Manny 110 RBI. He got 91. That was tough. I predicted a Juan Soto extension, so that was not great. And then rounding it out, Trent Grisham All-Star. So
Grisham makes 9. Oh dear.
Who could ever forget? So we're starting with biggest strengths. Do I have that right, Craig?
Yes. So I'd like to hear from all of us what we think going in now, no longer scenarioing, but actually looking at the team we have, what we think are the biggest strengths of this team going in.
Okay.
You want to lead us off, Craig? You haven't led off.
Yeah, I want to
yet.
hear from you first, Craig.
Okay, sure. I think the biggest strength of this team potentially now is their starting rotation.
Damn it.
This is
I
a
shouldn't have
club
let you go first.
that with the addition of with the addition of Dylan Cease, you now have an opportunity no longer to first off just count on a Musgrove U Renaissance season, but instead to dream on a season where Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove are both, average versions of themselves to slightly above average versions of themselves. And then you've got Cease and Michael King that you can look at and go, these guys could be dynamic. At the end of the year, they could be the 1-2. Cease and King could be the 1-2 for this team. And you and Joe could be the best 3-4 in the league. And then you've got a 5 spot that now looks like an asset as opposed to a liability for this team, because now it's not, oh God, we got to fill 2 spots. It's like, well, who's best? Now there's an argument. Maybe it should be Brito. Maybe it should be Waldron. Well, what about someone else? Now it's an actual argument. So I love where the rotation is. I think there are other things, and I'll leave for you guys, that I think are core strengths of the Padres for 2024. But the thing that could be the best is the starting 5.
I couldn't agree more. As I said last week on the Optimism podcast, not on the Dylan Cease Reaction podcast, this could be the best rotation in Padres history. And I friggin' mean that. Like, I know Kevin Brown had 1998 where he was 7 wins or whatever, and that alone pumps up a rotation more than, we're probably going to see this year. But in the aggregate, in the 6, 7 guys that are likely to start games for the Padres this year, I don't see anybody who's going to fall apart completely. Matt Waldron might be a candidate for that, but John Percoda and Raphie have detailed their smart strategies for getting him through the year without having to risk it. The addition of Dylan Cease, a guy whose metrics have outperformed his stats playing in front of a terrible defense with a demoralized stadium around him, just a collapsing organization. I think he rejuvenates his career the next 2 years in San Diego and is in the running for Cy Young this year. I think he becomes that guy. And Joe and you are looking for bounce back seasons. I really think when it all comes down to it in the aggregate, this could be the best starting rotation the Padres have ever put forth.
Yeah, I mean, doing the Pods of a Replacement episode on Dylan Cease, I think, he played in the AL Central, and I knew Dylan Cease was good, but really getting to spend an hour talking about what makes him excellent made me just so excited to have this guy on our team. There was some stuff that was after the trade happened where it was I think he slots in, you and Joe have been here for a while, so he slots in third in our rotation. We should not make any mistake. This is the best pitcher on the Padres now. I feel very confident in saying that. And I think that there's a chance that you and Joe can play up to Dylan Cease and Michael King for that matter. And then then we're in a fantastic position. But in terms of if I had to pick which guy on the team has the highest floor of his season, I think it's Dylan Cease. If I think it who's the guy who has the highest ceiling, I think it's Dylan Cease. So I mean, I think it's pretty clear who you're when you put it in those terms, who the best pitcher is. And so I think the addition cannot be understated. But there's other things that we should get to talking about. But I mean, Craig, you took the obvious first thing, and I'm glad you did, because it really shouldn't be understated how solid this rotation is now.
Well, I would go to the next thing that I think is the biggest strength for this team. And this is why I'm kind of starting to get more excited about the Padres. Because if you start with a great starting rotation, and then the next best thing about the team is the way they catch the ball, it gives you the basis, the platform for success. This should be as good a defensive infield as exists in the National League. Once Manny is back on the hot corner, and we know he's not there yet, so we're going to have at least a short-term Eggy / Tyler / Paulie, whatever, mishmash at the hot corner. But Kim, Bogarts, Machado, Cronenworth should be dynamite. I know that all stuff out of spring training can be at least 40% propaganda, but the whole thing about Cronenworth talking about how he's positioning himself slightly differently this year in order to take away more hits, and then people like Jesse and Sammy telling me in spring training that this guy's been playing ridiculously good defense at first base, that gets me excited. Tatis in right field is obviously already a great outfielder. We don't know what Jackson Merrill will be. You're very hopeful because he's got the speed, he's got the profile to be a good outfielder, but we won't know. So put him aside. Say what you want about Jurickson Profar. I think he's a pretty good defensive left fielder. Listening to him throw out a dude the other day in a game I was listening to, I was like, oh yeah, he's got a really good arm. He does those things with Toddy and right and Profar and left. Those are two of the better arms combined in the National League. So before you even get to offense, which, I don't know where you guys will put that in buckets, weakness, X factor, whatever. I think this team is going to pitch. At least this rotation is going to pitch. And I think that this team's going to catch the ball.
They're also pretty solid behind the plate too, with Campy and Higashioka. Higashioka has been highly successful throwing out runners, bodes well in the speed first game. I would say the thing about Jackson Merrill that you do know is he's going to look bad a time or two, and that's going to be a part of it. But like you said, Craig, 6'3", 220 or whatever. He's an athlete, and it's going to need reps for him to really get comfortable out there. But they've got all world right fielder Fernando Tatis Jr. And, we're going to get into other things about him, X factors and whatnot. But if we know anything, we know the guy can cover ground like a friggin' gazelle. There's been reporting in the UT about Mike Schultz's joke about having him be the right fielder and center fielder has made some smart people in the team go, wait, actually, maybe what if we did shade him a little bit over if it's a right-handed pull hitter just to cover that gap a little bit more and trust that he can get to the line if needed to be. I think the team's going to be a lot smarter with that this year because they're talking about being more prepared and they know what they have in Tatis a little bit more.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Craig, about defense being an asset on this team. Lest we forget that we play in Petco Park 81 games a year, and I suppose less this year because of Seoul. But I love when a team plays into its strengths, and that some of that includes ballpark venue. Left field is not a difficult left field to play in Petco. I have no qualms about Jerks and Profar playing there. We know what Tatis can do in right. I'm hoping that the two of them combined on the corners ease the burden for Jackson Merrill in center field. I think the biggest question marks I have are those just absolutely stung barreled baseballs that are going over Jackson Merrill's head, and backtracking for that. I think that that's going to present him with the biggest challenge, and that was something that we saw Trent Grisham do really well. So that's my question mark for outfield defense going forward. But you guys said everything for infield defense. I think Xander's going to be really good at second base. I think he's going to be like I've been banging the Marcus Semien comp drum for weeks now, and I know it's probably getting annoying, but I just think like his question mark was the arm. We've taken that away by moving him to second base. He was a great fielder last year, just in terms of his glove, and so I think that transition is going to be fantastic. Manny's elbow still a question mark for me. We're kind of taking it for granted that he's going to come back and be the same guy. I don't know. But defense is definitely a strength of ours.
And I'll say something nice about Jacob Cronenworth before I don't. And that he has looked fantastic at first base. He has saved a couple extra base hits in the 6 games I've watched. So that is his strength to his game. Can I add something? I think the strength of the team is
Yes,
young talent. This may not have been the case the past few years, but Jackson Merrill, Graham Pauley looked to be making the team. Tom Cosgrove was lights out as a reliever last year. Michael King, Johnny Brito looks to be in the rotation, if not Matt Waldron. There are a lot of young guys contributing to the major league club on affordable contracts that are going to be around for a while. And there is still a nice little pool of guys who might not be on the team because they could be traded because AJ Preller has rebuilt the farm system and still has tons of ammunition after swinging perhaps the biggest trade for starting pitching in the offseason. The Dodgers traded 2 pretty decent prospects to get Tyler Glasnow, and the Orioles traded a former top 100 and the MLB ready shortstop for Corbin Burns. But the Padres traded their 5 and a few guys down the list, so they still have plenty of ammunition to work with in the hopes of bettering the team. So the young talent the Padres have accrued and stockpiled is a major strength of the organization.
I do think we're better positioned than we were a year ago. There's no question about it. I think the team is better positioned to withstand maybe an injury. Still, it couldn't withstand a giant rash. A few clubs could, but I do think you lost a couple of arms that would have been early calls in the Cease trade. in terms of if there was an injury. So I still think there is, but that's true for many / most teams.
But if you get to your
yes.
number 7 guy is Ryan Bergert, who was a standout performer at West Virginia, that's pretty damn good. Jairo Uriarte, I made the argument a few weeks back that he would have been the number 1 pitching prospect in Baltimore's system, trying to swing a trade for him for a young outfielder. Instead, we got hopefully an ace. So the talent is there. They still got more. I don't want to say rounds in the chamber because I don't like gun analogy, but that's what I'm going to say because I already said.
All right. Well, are there any more giant strengths of this team that we should discuss before we move off of biggest strengths?
I'll just do one really quickly. We talked about Kim's being back at shortstop. I think that's great on a walk here. That's a really quick one. We still have a great core 3 big guys, and I just think it's always worth remembering that. Like Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts, and Fernando Tatis Jr. are 3 of the top 25, 30 players. I don't know. Am I being insane? Position players, certainly in the top 40, and like to have those 3 guys in their prime now. I'm not saying, we're ignore the contracts, ignore everything right now. I'm just talking about 2024 Padres. This is the 2024 predictions podcast. That's a very solid core 3. And I think Tatis he played to his floor last year. I think Xander's going to improve at second base. Manny is my biggest question mark for this year, given his, surgery and everything like that. But they're 3 stars, and that's awesome that we get to watch them. So that's my final strength.
I wasn't going to let us get off this unless that was mentioned. So thank you. Yeah, this team has great players at the top of the lineup who could win you a game any night. And we saw many games last summer where the top of the lineup did win the game for the team because that was the game that Soto was hot, or that was the game that Manny was hot, or that was the game that Toddy was hot. And it didn't happen enough for the 2023 Padres, but it did happen, like 1 out of 3 games it would happen. So great pitching. Pardon me. A really solid starting rotation that has the chance to be one of the best in the league.
And potentially the best the Padres have ever had.
Combined with a defense that absolutely should be top 3 at the minimum in the National League. Like, at the minimum, they should be top 3 in the National League. If they're top 3 in baseball, that makes sense. If they're number 1 in baseball, it's not impossible. It's reasonable for this to be the best infield defense in baseball. So, big strengths and studs that we paid a lot for at the top of the order. Okay, let's get to the biggest weaknesses of the Padres as we see them going into 2024.
I got 2. And if you look at their stat pages, they are practically identical. Jurickson Profar and Jacob Cronenworth had lines within 1 at bat of each other, both with a sub 700 OPS. I think Jake had 2 more home runs, and Jurickson had 20 points higher on his batting average. But they are practically the same hitter, and that's fine if you got one of them, but we got 2 right now. Jake has regressed every single year he's been a professional. He has not gotten better in a single year. I don't see that changing. And when you have that at first base in your lineup, it's great that he's locking down the spot from a defensive standpoint. I think that's excellent. It's almost like Trent Grisham securing center field. Center field is a little bit more important, but first base is important, as anyone who remembers the Eric Hosmer era will attest to. But you really need that spot to contribute to the lineup. So the Padres cannot have him get worse this year. It just can't happen if they hope to compete against the Dodgers, Diamondbacks, and Giants. They need him to have a huge season. I'm not so sure he will.
Good one. I'm gonna say the bullpen for my next one. I think that Hader was a bummer last year, and I'm glad that he's not on the team anymore. But he was also a fucking stud. And like, I think that what was frustrating about him was that he had all this and he was using it in a way that seemingly benefited himself more than the team. I understand it. You get one payday free agency. I'm not trying to relitigate that or anything like that, but that caused a wrench in the bullpen. For all of his foibles, he was a closer. He was a real closer. And I'm not someone who I believe in the closer by committee. I'm not someone who's like, you need that guy who's gonna like close out games or like whatever. I don't think I really, really, truly in my gut feel super confident about anyone in the bullpen right now. I don't feel that about Robert Suarez. I don't feel that about Yuki Matsui. Am I excited about these guys? Yes. I'm very excited. I'm excited to watch them play. But if we're up by a run against the Dodgers and I see Robert Suarez trotting out of the bullpen in the ninth inning, I'm a little worried, like, and in a way that I just wasn't with Josh Hader. I wasn't like, and it's not like Josh Hader didn't blow games. Like, of course he did.
I
Like,
remember one against the Dodgers that kind of swung the whole season.
yeah, and I was shocked because of how confident I felt in that moment. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I'm not even starting with that baseline level of confidence. So, and I mean, just going,
We are spoiled as Padres fans.
Yeah, we've always been spoiled. I think Fangraphs has us projected as 24th in the league for bullpen WAR this season. I mean, part of that is the fact that like they really don't believe in, some of our guys. It's 25th, I'm sorry. They project Robert Suarez to put up like 0.2 WAR. Yuki Matsui is projected to be much better,
Wow.
Yeah. Basically our entire bullpen is projected to put up 1.7 WAR. According to Fangraphs depth charts, and one of that 1.7 is Yuki Matsui. So it's like, they don't believe in Suarez. They don't believe in De Los Santos. They don't believe in Peralta. They don't believe in Estrada. They don't believe in Usoko. They like Tom Cosgrove, but how much is he going to have the chance to contribute? Yeah. And so it's, I don't, what are you laughing at?
Just you reminded me of that old meme of like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, you're cool, fuck you.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I think that does this bullpen have room to surprise us? Yes,
Tons.
Absolutely. Do I trust Ruben Diablo with my life? Absolutely. That being said, I don't think you can, if we're talking about weaknesses, I don't think you can look at the bullpen and say that it's not a weakness.
Well, I mean, if that's where your like Rule 5 draft pick might make the team, yeah.
He's not going to make the team, is he? I mean, I don't know. By the time this is recorded, maybe he's made the team. I don't know.
Yeah, like there's a fight. There's a fight for not just one spot in the bullpen. There's a fight for like 2 or 3, depending on how confident the team is and go,
Yeah. Well, I agree with both of you. All button biggest weaknesses, and mine is offensive depth.
Oof.
Thank you.
I think, again, I was listening to yesterday, Sunday night, as we recorded this Sunday, St. Patrick's Day. I was driving home from a soccer's match in the Inland Empire. I was listening to the Jesse Tony broadcast from Seoul against the second exhibition game. And, it was nice. Ha-Seong Kim hit a couple homers, and it was just kind of weird because after Kim, I was like, and now here's Profar. And that was the 6 hitter. And then it was kind of like, wow, this could be our team. And obviously we want Luis Camposano to be really good. He didn't start in this exhibition game I listened to. It was Higashioka. But when your bottom 4 is Profar, Higashioka, Eggy Rosario, and Jackson Merrill, like, well, maybe Jackson Merrill will get a single in the 9 spot, maybe, but that could be nothing. That could be 4 straight outs, like over and over and over and over again. And that, when you've got a lineup where the last 4 guys could just be outs over and over again, it puts a ton of pressure on the top 5 guys to generate all the offense. And one of the easy talking points for Padres fans, for team apologists, for folks who just want to be like, Padres are great, is it doesn't matter. What really matters is how Xander and Tatis and Machado hit. And if they hit, we're cool. Well, yeah, but even if they all have good seasons, what the lineup is sometimes asking of the Padres right now is for them to have a good game at the same time. For them all to have a good game at the same time, or at least for two of them to have a good game at the same time. And as we know, baseball is a stupid game, and it doesn't always play that way, where those guys all have good games at the same time.
Last
So
year.
what you need is some contributions elsewhere in the lineup. Right now, I think our bench is quite possibly the worst in the big leagues. You could probably show me somewhere someone else.
Yeah, the Oakland Athletics are still one of the 30 MLB teams,
Sure,
Craig.
I understand. I'm sure we're not the worst. Maybe the Rockies are worse too. I don't know. But we're one of the worst benches in the major leagues right now. You're going to be looking at Rando, or Kyle Higashioka to get a hit off the bench right now for the Padres. So offensive depth, to me, this is just a weakness for this club. There's not another, well, just wait, there's so-and-so coming. Like, who's that so-and-so? There's no one coming, right? Well, Jacob Marcy's going to save us out of AA? Like, that's not going to happen. So this, to me, is the thing that stands out the most as like how is it going to get fixed weakness.
Yeah. I've got one more. That's a great one, by the way. I mean, looking at our bench right now, Higashioka, Rosario, Tyler Wade, and Jose Azocar is our current projected bench. I mean, that's rough. Like, that's really, really rough.
Yeah, Tyler Wade, if he doesn't make the Padres, he's not going to be on a major league team.
Yeah. Yeah. I know we praised Jay Cronenworth's defense, and I really hope that he changes profile, but like, where are the beef boys on this team? Where's the lumber? You know, like, we don't have a true first baseman, a true left fielder, or a true designated hitter. Like,
correct.
We have no thump. I mean, we've got Manny and we've got Tatis, who I think are going to provide it in, they're in power corner positions now. I think Xander's going to give us a little pop. Kim's going to run into several, of course. Like, hopefully Cronenworth changes his offensive profile. There is no thump. I just want a beef boy. Like, Voit, for all I'm not, by the way, this is not going to be, I'm not going to go and praise Luke Voit, but I saw him come out. This is as close to an eye test as I'm going to get. I saw him come out of the dugout and I was like, there's a chance he hits one 7,000 feet. And like, I don't have that feeling about anyone on this team right now who's not like currently in our top, our core three, you know what I mean? That we've talked about. And really it's just like Tatis and Manning. Like, Xander is going to hit some home runs, but I don't think he's going to hit 7,000 feet. Like, same goes for Kim. Same goes for Cronenworth. Like,
yeah,
there's just no thump. And like we talked about, like, maybe you can bring in Brandon Belt. Like, even bringing in Tommy Pham doesn't really help that problem.
No,
it extends the
15
lineup
homers.
And Juan Soto hit what, 35 last year? Those aren't coming back from anybody on the team.
No,
exactly. And even Trent Grisham ran into some home runs that I don't think Jackson Merrill is like gonna hit more home runs than Trent Grisham hit.
Not this year, no.
Yeah. A lot of people have said that to me on Twitter too. Like, all Jackson Merrill has to do is hit 200 with 15 homers. Then he'll do better than Trent Grisham. I'm like, first off, defense actually is a real thing that exists. It's why Trent Grisham's still in the big leagues. He would have been retired from baseball if he didn't have his glove. Okay, so that matters. But the other thing is Jackson Merrill hitting 15 homers. I'm sorry.
No.
I couldn't even do that on the Best Case Scenario podcast. If he does that, amazing, unbelievable, found money. But that would be, frankly, 10 more homers than I'm expecting from Jackson Merrill this year. I'd be happy if he hit 5.
Yeah, and they have Roster Resorts has the Padres with a platoon at third base until Manny comes back of Pauly and Rosario. And neither of those guys are 20 home run guys either. So DH, Manny's your thumper DH until he's your third baseman. And then DH is one of those guys.
Yeah, it's bad. We still need Brandon Belt in the worst way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go to the biggest X factor. And I'll just build off something because you talked about it, Rafe. I'm going to put Suarez and Matsui here as the biggest X factor. because there is a universe where Robert Suarez is a reliable closer for the Padres. And if that actually happens, the thing that the Padres have scouted and contracted Robert Suarez to do, it changes a lot. Because I do think this could be a very good bullpen. I can squint and imagine a world where the Padres have three guys in Cosgrove, Matsui, and Peralta, who we aren't talking about, Wandy Peralta, who have a chance to match up against the big left-handed bats in this division and in the National League. That we've always got a good lefty on call, like from the fifth inning onward, and any trip through the lineup after the second time to take on left-handed batters on the other side. I think there's a world in which Estrada steps up and steps right into the Steven Wilson role and is as good or better than what Steven Wilson was last year. I'm not even sure that Daniel De Los Santos makes the team. Like, he hasn't pitched that great in spring training, but if he doesn't, you know what? Randy Vasquez is a kid that could have his stuff play up in the bullpen. You guys want Waldron to be that long relief. Personally, I'd said Brito, but whoever it is, it's one of those guys. They're going to be in the bullpen, and they could be an asset. I was very intrigued to note that Waldron in his exhibition in Korea threw over 40% knuckleballs when he had been 15, 20%. So maybe he does throw more knucklers in relief to be a change of pace. I don't know. But I still think this could be a really good bullpen. I also think it could be a really bad bullpen. And that's why I have it as an X factor. I do not know. I think it maybe decides the season, potentially, how good or bad this bullpen is in terms of when we hit a win number. But there's a lot of unknowns in there that I think could swing wild. Yuki Matsui could make the All-Star team. He could have a whip under one. There's a world in which it's a really good bullpen. There's a world in which we don't hold leads with our great starting rotation.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. I think that's a good summation.
My X factor is also going to be leapfrogging off of one of the things Raphie said, and that has to do with the Beefy Boys. There's two guys who, you can project, and I think are projected to hit more than 30 home runs this year. That's Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado. Manny Machado is coming off of an elbow surgery he had a few months ago. Fernando Tatis Jr. is coming off of shoulder and wrist surgeries that we have not seen proven him totally recovered from. Like, we have not seen that Fernando Tatis Jr. 2019, 2020 power swing come back. We've seen it smooth out. We've seen his approach at the plate get a little bit better this spring, but we have not seen that raw, electrifying power that takes over games yet. And if both of those guys don't have it, recovering from their respective surgeries, or, Fernando's wrist isn't quite the same, that's going to take away our only beef, boys. There will be no beef. There will be lean protein abound. The lineup could work under those conditions, but it's not what San Diego has been accustomed to. It's not what was happening in 2022 when the team got going and there were clutch home runs happening left and right. So that's huge especially when you hear the arguments all the time of, oh, the big four now or big three will carry the team. Well, if they don't, the team's kind of sunk because, like you said, Craig, bottom 3 or 4 of the lineup looks extremely mediocre. The bench pieces look downright sub-mediocre. So those guys need to come back fully healthy and have their swing signal. Now, that said, I think they're going to. I think Manny Machado is going to hit 30 home runs this year. I'm certain he's going to be the new team record holder for home runs at the end of the year. And I have all the faith in Fernando being able to do that because of his discipline and the elite athlete he is. It's just, if that doesn't happen, I can't see the team doing what at best case, I see them doing.
Yeah. I have two X factors. One is a player and one is a more ephemeral concept. Because you guys already touched on the Beef Boys, you've already touched on. I wanted to give quick shout outs to like guys who are in the middle of the lineup who, if they have great years, really improve us. Luis Campusano, I think is someone who, if he has a 120, 130 WRC plus and gets 400 plate appearances, like I could easily see him becoming a 2 to 3 WAR player for us. That's fantastic. Jake Cronenworth is someone who, if he actually becomes an offensive contributor and gets that power that, we've been hearing has been coming for a long time, like that'll be great. But the one I really did want to say in terms of a player is Jackson Merrill. I think that I've been watching. This is a little bit of a tangent. I've been watching a lot of golf videos. I'm trying to improve my golf game. There's one thing that you can teach form, but when people have naturally good form, that it feels God given. It's just kind of raises the floor of what they're capable of. And just watching Jackson Merrill swing a bat, I'm like, that is an unbelievably beautiful, short, compact swing. And the way that he has had so much success just in the few weeks I've seen, hitting to the opposite field in a way that feels comfortable and intentional, like it's just remarkable. And so like, do I think that like the season hinges on Jackson Merrill? Like, no, I don't. Like, I think that, but I do think that like he can be terrible and it will have a huge impact on the team because we really don't have a backup plan, or he can be phenomenal and get Rookie of the Year votes, and then it's a huge boon for the team. So that's my player X factor is Jackson Merrill. And then in terms of ephemeral concept, I think this is low-key really important, and I've talked about it on each of our last 2 prediction pods. I think our timely hitting and clutch stats are going to make or break this team. Like, I think that, like, with a normal, a normal luck season, a normal timeliness season, this year's offense will be better than last year's offense. And last year's offense had Juan Soto in it.
Yeah.
Like, and I just think that, like, that is something that is literally lightning in the bottle, that like, it changes so much from year to year for teams. But if we can figure out how to hit situationally, or, we are blessed by the gods, whatever you believe, whether it's a skill or it's just divine intervention, whatever you think, if it comes this year for the Padres and we swing back even a modicum towards normalcy, like I think it'll be huge for this team. So those are my X factors.
Raphie, I had a couple more, but one of them is very aligned with this in the ephemeral, and it comes from an AJ Preller quote that happened this week, talking about how to replace Juan Soto. And in it, he discusses that situational hitting, but he also discusses just the team being a damn team. And for the first time that I've seen him do, he kind of put some of the blame on Juan Soto for that not happening last year. The quote was, obviously, you're going to do it, replace him, in a lot of different ways because he's a really impactful individual player. But I think there are a lot of different ways to win games, a lot of different ways to replace his production on the defensive end, the base path, from a chemistry team standpoint, in terms of offensive production, moving the baseball, playing the little game well, and doing what the game calls for. Those are some of the areas we've talked about in order to replace somebody. That's my other X factor, is the team being a damn team and coming prepared to play ball games. How many times in May of June last year did we see an unprepared team? That may have to do with the organization's advanced scouting needing to improve. That may need to do with the organization's communication from the top down, getting that information to the players in a cohesive way. That is what Mike Schilt, I feel, truly is going to bring to the team. And here's AJ calling an individual player an individual, saying it was hurting team chemistry and cohesion. That's an X factor if I ever heard one.
Absolutely. Hard to quantify. We'll know it when it's done. Basically, we'll know it as we see it, and as it unfolds, because we could see it in the middle of last year. We could see it early on last year, and then we continued to try and convince ourselves baseball's stupid, just wait, hang on, things are going to change. What we're seeing is noise, it's not a signal. And it turned out there was a signal beeping, like kind of almost all the way through the season, saying there's something wrong here. And it was hard to quantify, so it was hard to grasp our wrap our heads around, or grasp and hang on to, pick your metaphor. Okay. Strengths established, weaknesses elucidated, X factors have been put up with dials next to them. Can we crank them up, or are they going to be twisted down? It's time to get to it. It's time to get to season predictions for 2024. Listen, you guys have been making me go for. I'll just start. A lot changed for me with the Dylan Cease trade.
I did want to ask, do you guys want to adjust your numbers at all?
Well, yes, absolutely. Each one of these, we've been going off the information we had at the time. And even to last week, when we were best casing it, there was a very real concern that the Padres were just not going to spend money this year, that they were going to hold $20 million underneath the salary cap, that they were going to, really cut $100 million off the team and not replace it, and just sell us concerts and Gallagher Square improvements and more Cutwater, and that was going to be the way it was going to go. And Cease told me something. Not Dylan. Yeah, he told me that he loves disc golf, and I said, "Cool, wow, that's neat." The Cease trade told me something. It told me that the team really is committed to trying to win this year. That raised the ceiling on this team. There's no question. My best case last week was 91. I'd push that right away to 95. If all four pitchers pitched like aces, if they got 750 innings out of those guys, if we had all the X's and Y's line up, I think the team could win 95 games. Now, I think the floor is higher as well. But I do think this is a mixed bag of a team. I think this team is going to have struggles from time to time, because I don't think that depth is there. However, I do believe, based on the Cease trade, that at least one, if not multiple, transactions are still to come for this team. We can talk when we get to the news about Pham, the latest Pham rumor. Tommy Pham doesn't really move the needle for me a ton. There's a world in which Jurickson Profar has a better year than Tommy Pham this year. It's not impossible. It seems crazy based on last year, but in 2022, if you had asked in 23 who's going to have the better year, Pham or Profar, I think a lot of people would have said Profar instead of Pham. So, with that, I set the line at 84 and then said we're going to get a little luckier this year, and I put it to 85. Which, by the way, not for nothing, was my worst case scenario pick for the Padres last year. I think the Padres, with a season of Schilt magic, with an improved starting rotation, with one of the best defenses in the National League, are going to be able to overcome some days that they just don't hit and get shut out and get, held down, to play a little bit luckier, a little bit more together, and win 85 games. And I think that'll be enough for at least the 6th seed in the National League.
Raphie is shaking his head for the listeners in their cars.
Because he picked 85 wins.
Oh!
I had the same prediction. Can I just go next, just so that hopefully
now. I mean, what? No, well, let's wait and see what you have to say later.
So my floor was 72 and my ceiling was 95. This was before the Cease trade. So right in the middle of that's 83.5 wins. You add Dylan Cease. probably a couple extra wins to that at least. But listen, I think I picked 85 for honestly a very unscientific reason, which is that I don't think it's a lot of fun to predict an 82 win team, which is what a lot of people have us projected as. I can't dream on 82 wins, as we know from last year. And also, I just genuinely, gosh, I know I probably sound like a broken record. Last year was so bad, and like in the most weird ways. And I think that like just having a normal season for this team, like it's going to play anything close to its truer talent level, which is a slightly better than 500 team, in my opinion. Just looking at it, like it's not perfect. It's got a questionable bullpen. It doesn't have depth, but it's got stars and it's got a great rotation. And it has a bullpen that's probably not great, but could be pretty good. And it's going to have great defense and just like everything we talked about. And I don't know. I don't want to spike the Snell talk. And this is going to be soundbited eventually if it comes back to bite me. The Giants don't scare me like that. Like I'm way more worried about the Diamondbacks than I am about the Giants. Like the Diamondbacks in my mind are a more balanced team. They're a younger team. They have reinforcements coming in a way that the Giants just don't. Like the Giants have Tyro Estrada and Lamont Wade Jr. and Mike Yastrzemski and like all these guys playing that they just don't, you can say the same thing about the Padres, but who is their biggest offensive star now? Matt Chapman? Like I don't know. Like, and
they hope it's Lee, I think.
They hope, but it also might not be. And like, that's the biggest thing is like, he's a giant question mark. And so I say all of this because like you can arrange the NL West 2, 3, 4 in any situation. And like, I would buy it 100%. I just think that like this team is going to have learned something from last year. I have to believe that because otherwise, what are we doing? What are we doing devoting this much time and energy talking about this team if we don't believe that they haven't taken some lessons organizationally, managerially, so 85 wins. As I'm also there, Craig. Chris?
I mean, masochism could be the answer to that question.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
All right. I want to bring out, I just want to break the pattern real quick with a few minor predictions. I think Jurickson Profar is going to be a Padre all season and hit his 10th year of service time as a Padre near the end of the year. I think Luis Campusano is going to abandon his samurai stance mid-season and go back to the one that gave him an 850 OPS last year. I think Jackson Merrill is going to be the number 2 hitter for the Padres before the end of mid-May, maybe quicker, because you remember who's number 2 right now, Raphie?
Who is Tatis right now? Is
no,
Tatis?
No, not Tatis. Or I guess it would be number 3. He's number 3. You're right, Tatis.
Third. Cronenworth is hitting third, yeah.
Yeah.
But Jackson will have to hit second because it'll move things around. He can't hit third. Cronenworth's hitting third right now. And we can't do that anymore. I think Brett Sullivan and Matt Waldron are going to form a tandem of people who come up from AAA to enhance each other's skills, and we're going to see their best baseball played together.
Didn't expect Brett Sullivan's name to come up in this show, just being
podcast?
honest.
No, he's going to do fine. He's going to they're going to highlight each other's skills because he can catch that knuckler. He's a left-handed bat. We're going to see a little bit more of him than maybe we want to. And hopefully the trade comes and that changes. But to get to the actual meat of it, I think AJ Preller is absolutely under the gun this year. I know some people think he's safe with the new administration. I think this trade proves that he's not, and that the team ownership has given him enough scope to try to go out and to win because he has to for his job. I think that I think the team has something else going for it in the passing of its owner. And I think when you sit in Petco Park this season, the spirit of a guy who gave everything he had to try to win a championship for the city is going to carry through all year long. I know the celebration of life is coming up, but I think that's going to continue on because Padres fans are so damn hungry for it. We have seen so many of our loved ones be born and die Padres fans without seeing winning. Not to go too off on a tangent, but I lost a really close friend of mine who was a gigantic Padres fan this week, Bob Chiacqua, high school golf teacher, guys. The guy I loved, and he loved the Padres, and he always thought that he was going to see them win in '84. He thought they were going to beat the Tigers. In '98, he thought they were going to beat the Yankees. He thought they were going to beat the Phillies a couple years ago. Well, he's gone. He's not going to get to see a championship, and Peter Seidler isn't going to get to see a championship. And I think the team is going to carry that because Petco Park is going to carry that all year long, not just on the patches. I think Mike Schilt is the guy to do it. He's a guy who has won every year he's been a manager. His last season in St. Louis, they had a 17-game win streak. I think they are going to have a longer win streak than last year by the time of the All-Star break. And Dylan Cease kind of blew this for me. This is a bit I've been planning since we started these things. But I think the Padres win 89 games. The best case scenario I laid out last week. I think that this is the type of season we're going to have. I think they're going to walk away solidly in the wild card. They're going to go into the playoffs playing well, rolling through, and that builds in, Craig, the same thing you talked about. AJ's got a wealth of talent to play with. This isn't going to be the team. Other teams haven't even set their rosters. There's going to be a bunch of people hitting the waiver wire. He may use that to hit the death, but he's going to know which guys teams are committing to and which guys he can try to take. I don't think this roster is built up yet. In my bones, as a long-suffering Padres fan who is living through the best era to be a Padres fan, think that it's going to get better before the trade deadline. And I think they're going to be an 89-win team. I think they're going to win the wild card solid, and I think they're going to be one of the scariest teams in the National League come the playoffs.
So should we just delete last week's episode?
No,
Raphie?
no, it was part of a bit. You guys brought. I tried to be optimistic throughout all of it, and yeah.
Oh, I love you. You just didn't play the game right, but I do love you.
I don't play the game right ever. I don't play the game right. You should know.
Pick your best case as the case.
It is the case because that's what's going to happen. That's what I think's going to happen. The best possible outcome for a team with Jonathan Profar as its left fielder and Jake Cronenworth playing first base.
You did give the most Chris Reed answer that you could have given.
Thank you, Rafe.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do the rest of this from down here. I'm just...
Okay, so
I knew this was going to be the reaction.
Summary: Craig and I 85, Chris 89.
Chris broken.
So
just remember your reaction last week and try to enjoy the dissonance between the two.
Oh Lord. All right. Shall we talk about Blake Snell for just a minute?
This was not in the best case scenario.
Blake Snell is a Giant. That fucking sucks. I really wanted him to be an Astro, a Yankee, an Angel,
a Cardinal. I don't care.
Part of that is because I didn't want to have to say this and have it come out as, oh, you're just saying this because now he's on the Giants, and so you need him to not be good because it's going to only be the way to fit your narrative because you don't want the Padres to finish in fourth place, blah, 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 blah. I don't think Blake Snell's going to be good. I would have said this if he was ours, okay? if we had just
Oh,
found
you've
out
been
that
consistent to saying that the team that signs Blake Snell is going to be making a giant mistake.
this deal, 2 years, $66 million. I actually don't think that's right anymore. Pardon me, $62 million. It's this weird thing. He's getting paid $15 million this year. He gets a $17 million signing bonus in 2026 after the contract's over. And then he has an opt-out, or he gets a $30 million deal next year. That's how the deal's been reported out. So I don't know if this did something to keep the Giants under an apron of the luxury tax, or I don't know if it counts the same for AAV. I'm sure they didn't do it to have it count the same.
Just to update you, their luxury tax number is now at 256 according to Roster Resource.
Okay, so they're over the first.
Yeah.
And they're close to the second.
I believe, yes. The thresholds are
57.
Yeah, the 257 is the second threshold, so they're just under the second threshold.
Okay. I think the Giants have done the bare minimum that they needed to be even competitive. I think without Chapman and Snell, this looked pretty easily like a losing team. Chapman is Melvin's buddy boy. He does improve the defense of the team pretty significantly. I don't think he improves the offense of the team significantly. Unless he's going to have a magical year, I think he's going to do what he does, which is sometimes he's going to have a month where he just doesn't hit for a whole month in a row.
JD Davis. Like, they, not defensively, of course, but at the plate, JD Davis and him, like, his floor is JD Davis.
I was going to say JD Davis could easily out-hit Matt Chapman.
Sure.
This year. Like, that could happen this year. But Chapman plays a much better defense. Blake Snell is going to a good ballpark. He's got a center fielder now who is very good defensively. The Giants were pretty bad defensively last year.
Yeah.
And I think they still have a lot of questions. And if they play Nick Ahmed at short, then they'll have two good defenders on the left side in Chapman and Ahmed. They'll have Lee in center, who's supposed to be able to run down everything. So they'll be like, okay. But, I would have said this if he signed here. Blake led the league in walks last year, and he had a ridiculous strand rate. And we looked at that as a skill. But it could also just be that this was the year that he stranded a lot of them, and then 2024 is the year that some of them come in. I would be shocked if his ERA is under 3 for the year. I think there's an okay chance he has a 3.5 to 4, but I think there's a chance he has an over 4 ERA for the Giants this year. I'm not scared of this. I'm a little scared of us facing him just because he's got that thing in him that sometimes he locks into a matchup, like the way he locked in against the Dodgers. But I don't know, guys. I'm not happy that he's a Giant, but I think if they signed Montgomery, I would have been a lot more scared, to be honest with you.
Oh, I disagree completely.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to go with you that far.
No.
I agree with you that it doesn't like super change my calculus on the Giants, like in terms of like, do I feel like way more like I think that like the leap forward that the Padres took by adding Cease is greater, and I'd say significantly greater than the leap forward that the Giants took by adding Snell. I mean, just looking at their rotation now, they've got Logan Webb, who's going to be incredible. They've got Blake Snell and Kyle Harrison, who I think will be good and will be pesky, but is still projected for like a 4.2 ERA this year. And then after that, it's Jordan Hicks as a starter and Keaton Wynn. So I'm like, okay, like that starting rotation.
They also have guys coming back mid-season, ostensibly.
Sure, yeah, they're gonna have Robbie Ray at some point. He could be good, he could be shit. Like, who knows? Yeah. And then, the lineup has Jung-Hoo Lee, but it all, like I said, has Tyrone Estrada. They've got Lamont Wade Jr. playing first base.
You keep knocking Lamont Wade Jr. Have you looked at his sliders? Because he always plays the platoon. He hits the shit out of the ball.
I don't know, man. I'm just looking at this team on paper, and I'm just like, I just don't get it. Like,
Yeah, but we didn't get it in 2021, and they went out and won 400 games.
yeah. And if they win 107 games again this year, like, I will eat my predictions paper. Okay,
That's not
like,
enough. You got to eat your jacket.
I'm not gonna eat my jacket.
Jacket, that's inedible.
You can cook it.
Yeah, anyway, I don't have anything else to say. It sucks. It's a bummer. It's going to suck when he comes back, and there's going to be Melvin in the visiting dugout and Snell on the hill, and the whole thing is going to be just a bummer. But at the end of the day, I think, if anything, I'm more bummed out for Mariners fans because, like, that was such an obvious, like, slam dunk that he go back to Seattle. And they're 18th in payroll in not a small market.
They just have all the young pitching in the world.
That's the thing. Their rotation's so good.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it doesn't make sense for them, but I just like that story.
I'm not going to frame it as good news in anything. I think the Giants got better. I think they got almost as much as better as the Padres did, but it's effectively a 1-year, $31 million contract. I compare it directly to what they did with Carlos Rodon. They found an asset in the marketplace that had question marks. They jumped on it. And I think they're going to maximize it. I think Blake Snell's a fantastic pitcher. He can be frustrating. He can get down on himself and get into streaks of not being able to put away the guys. But I really do think he became a different pitcher last year. His run the last 3 months of the year was incredible. It's going to be hard for him to get that momentum back right away. Blake Snell always starts slow. But I think he's a formidable presence in the division. And that's never good. But I it seems to me it's going to be a really tight race. Diamondbacks, Giants, Padres for that wild card spot. I don't see anybody else coming out of the Central and winning 85 games. I think they're going to have a champion. It's probably going to be the Cubs. Cardinals have a weird old ass rotation that they're hoping is miraculous in its return to the 2018 form. I don't think that's going to happen. And then you have the Phillies and the Braves in the East. And I don't know. I've always felt like the Phillies could fall off of a cliff. And now they have Bryce Harper asking for a contract extension. You don't think the Phillies are falling off a cliff?
No, I think the Phillies are an absolute lock for a wild card. And I think the Phillies are right there with the Dodgers and the Braves to win the National League pennant. I think they're as complete a team as there is in the league. They have a deep lineup. They have a solid rotation. They've got a bullpen with a lot of live arms. I really like the Phillies. I don't see anything bad about them. The way I see it is the Dodgers, the Braves, and the Phillies are three teams that I feel are a near guarantee to make the National League playoffs. And then you've got the Central winner, and that's 4. So you've got 2 spots left, and those could easily be the Diamondbacks and the Padres, or it could be the Diamondbacks and the Giants, or it could be the Giants and the Padres.
Yeah.
And if for some reason one of the Cardinals, Brewers, or Reds, and don't leave the Reds out, you should not leave the Reds out.
I'm going to, because they just had one of their stars get suspended for PEDs. And
he's not even a star. It's not even a kid. They don't even. Noelvi Marte doesn't have to start a game for them.
Yeah, he was going to be their starting third baseman.
He's not a star.
And then they just had another pitcher go down. He's going to be out for the start of the season. Who was it? I don't know. One of their pitchers.
Craig says,
it's the center fielder, TJ Friedel. He's out for half the season.
Craig says, don't sleep on the Reds. The Reds have a chance to be a good team. This is not an easy race. 85 is a strong pick. We're a Padres podcast. I said on that a little bit of luck is in that. Like, I think the truer number is Vegas-y. It's right there. But that's what it's really going to come down to, guys. This is going to, if the team plays to the level we think it will, this season is going to come down to the last week. It absolutely is. It's going to come to the last week, a game or two. And if you tell me that it's going to be the 3 teams in the NL West fighting for 2 spots, I can totally believe that. But if one team from the Central or the East, the Marlins or the Reds are the 2 I would put in that group, rise to a level that we don't expect, something unexpected happens every year, then it makes the Padres' chance of making the playoffs much more difficult. I like our chances of beating off one of these. Oh,
Whoa.
I like our chances of finishing ahead of one of these teams, holding them off. But I really think that we're going to add something to the team that helps along the way.
I think they're going to cannibalize one of those NL Central teams. And, the progression to the mean of that delicious Pythagorean championship we won last year is finally going to pay some real world dividend.
Anything about Tommy Pham? Bob Nightingale Sunday, 1 year, $3 to $4 million deal.
No, he's literally the only person that's reported it that I've seen. So as far as I'm concerned, do I believe it? Like, yeah, it seems like something that would absolutely happen.
Of course they're talking to Tommy Pham. Of course they are.
And they're not going to probably announce anything until after the Korea series, just to kind of keep things like locked down. So, maybe we'll have something to talk about on group therapy on Thursday. But I don't have anything else. We've talked about what Tommy Pham means to this team, and we'll see when he's actually on the team. We can talk about it more.
I just wish we had signed Adam Duvall. I mean, talk about where's our meat boys, our beef boys, or whatever. Adam Duvall is like, roll a 6-sided die. If it comes up 1 or 2, he hits 30 homers for you this year. So, I'm bummed about that because Tommy Pham, doesn't matter how many times you roll that die, he's not going to hit 30 homers for you this year. That's not going to happen.
Adam Duvall was the best hitter in Major League Baseball for 2 months last year until he broke his wrist or whatever.
Well, he gone now. And I will say until it doesn't happen and then it becomes irrelevant that I still think Brandon Belt would help this team so much. And he fits because you could just play him at first base until Manny is able to take third, and you could just stretch your infielder over. You could have Bogarts at short, Kim at third, Cronenworth at second. You can do that. That's why you pay these multi-positional players. No one has to keep, I thought this is the year that the Eagle was left at the door, so it wouldn't be like you could do that for a month, and then you could have Belt as your DH. Our DH right now is nothing. Our DH is like that drawer at your grandma's house in the kitchen that you open it and there's just like a washer and a nail and a screw.
My grandmother's doesn't even open because the stove blocks it in. You have to open the stove to open the drawer.
What's in here? There's this weird puffy thing. I don't even know what it does. Like, that's where we are.
We have overlooked one huge thing with the Blake Snell signing. With the Blake Snell signing, the qualified offer is now in effect, and AJ Preller has another 4th-round draft pick to cook with, baby!
Let's go. Some directional Michigan school center fielder or shortstop is coming to us.
Shortstops everywhere!
All the shortstops. Hey, this kid plays at Gulf Coast University, but he's a hell of a shortstop. All right. That's it. Production episode. 2 people understood the assignment. One just took his best case scenario.
I understood it perfectly. I just don't have time for your games.
We'll be back on Thursday night with group therapy to react to the first 2 regular season results and hopefully to remind you that baseball is stupid and no one should watch. Until
best
then,
game on earth.
For Chris Reed and Raphie Cantor, I'm Craig Elsten. Thanks for watching Padres Hot Tub. Go Padres.